talked about this with the Hay students and some of the things that we were going to do tonight. We talked about the idea of maybe including a Mariv service as a part of our Hay class move-up day. And those of you who were here when we talked about this were very excited about the idea of getting up and helping to lead the prayers again as a class. So we decided to add that as a part of our Hay class move-up day. And so if you did not grab a Siddur on your way in, I invite you to do so. There's still a couple more in the back. Feel free to grab one. And also you can find a pamphlet back there so that you can follow along. But Kenner, Benjamin, and I are very excited to be here with the Hay class and with their teacher, Moa and Matt, as we celebrate them this evening. So we will begin on page 137, and I invite you to rise as you're comfortable and able to do so as we move into our Mariv service with Baruch Hu. Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. Amen. We continue on the bottom of page 137, and I'd like to invite Kita Hay to come on up. And if you want to just all gather around the table together, you're going to help lead us, as we talked about, in a bunch of our prayers this evening. And so we talked about the idea of either having them kind of take turns for different prayers so as we move through the service. But in the end, we really like the idea of everyone doing it together.
Ready? Ki him chayenu, v'yorech yamenu, uvahem neyayomam b'layla. Ki him chayenu, v'yorech yamenu, uvahem neyayomam b'layla. Ki him chayenu, v'yorech yamenu, uvahem neyayomam b'layla. Kihim chayenu v'yorech yamenu uvahem neyayomam b'layla. Kihim chayenu v'yorech yamenu uvahem neyayomam b'layla. Kihim chayenu v'yorech yamenu uvahem neyayomam b'layla. Yachad tzirivenu l'olam Yisrael, Ohevamo Yisrael.
Amen. Our Hay class will remain up on the bima as we turn to page 138 and prepare to recite the words of Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol miodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'shofbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam li'od al yadecha v'hayu l'todacha b'neinecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'hisharecha.
We continue silently. Hey class, you can have a seat. We continue on the bottom of page 139 with Micha Mocha. And the other night, for some reason, my younger daughter insisted on us watching Return of Egypt. Is that what it's called? No, Prince of Egypt. Prince of Egypt. And she was mesmerized at the story, and Dahlia was like, "This is what's going to happen next, and this is what's happened. This is what we just talk about at Passover." But she was very perplexed by a lot of the details of it, and so I very much have the Disney image, or whatever that is, Pixar image, Miramax image of this scene of crossing the sea and of Moses going into the sea, and so whatever the image is. It is clearly a pivotal moment in our story and in our history, and one that comes up again and again in our liturgy, in Torah, and every single day and every single week. And so I think it's important for us to note sort of what imagery that might be, but to also notice the focus that we have in our daily prayer on freedom and all of the ways in which we sitting here tonight have that freedom. We owe a lot to the people who came before us, and hopefully we can feel that gratitude as we sing these words.
That's really funny, because when we were driving to the beach on Thursday night, Becca decided to put on the soundtrack from The Prince of Egypt.
Mi chamocha va'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot osefela. Melchut chavru v'necha b'kel ifnei Moshe zelir v'yamru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. V'nemar kivad Adonai et Yaakov v'golel chazak mimenu baruch Adonai Yisrael.
Amen. Continue on the top of page 140 with Hashkivenu, or prayer for peace and protection. Did you? What? Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
ושמור צאתנו ובאנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר את עמו ישראל לעד.
Would the K class please come up and help us lead the Chati Kaddish on page 141?
Oh, yeah.
Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah
Amen.
V'yamati b'rakirutei v'yamlich malchutei
B'chayechon
u'yomechon u'kayedechol beit Yisrael Agala b'agala u'bizman kariv v'imaru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach V'yalam yomei amaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitrah v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalah shemei l'kudusha brichu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran me'alma v'imaru. Amen.
We turn to page 142b. And I want to invite the rest of you to please rise if you're comfortable and able to do so. Hey, class, you can return to your seat as we move into our Mariv Amidah, which is silent.
Yigadavi Gadashumi Rabba. Biamadi Braka Tevim Nichmachadebakai Konu Yamikonu Kaid Chobet Israel Bagalaz Magrivimaru. Amen. Yaheshme Rabba Mevarach. Yolam Leomeo Maya Yitbarach. Yitbarach Vishtabach Vitbar Vishram to save it to David to Levi to Lash Midgorashab Barichu. Yamikov Chata Visharat to Jishbechata Vinachamata Dam Yaramil Mavimru. Amen. Take about Salahon Uviota Kontoka Israel Kudan Hodishmai Vimaru. Amen. Yaheshlam Ram Mishamai Vachaim Little Kalisra Vimaru. Amen. Hose Shalom Bimrama. Huya say Shalom Aleinu. Pe'al Yisrael. Vimru, Amen. Yahaseh Shalom, Yahaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Yisrael. 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 V'yimaru, Amen.
Some of you talked a lot about this or learned about it through the process of becoming B'nai Mitzvah. And you'll see soon that we are nearing the end. So last night we counted day 45. And as you look on page 156, you'll see that we're nearing the end of our counting. And that means that Shavuot is near. So Saturday night we'll come together as a community to celebrate Shavuot. To begin our celebration, we'll have some learning, and then we'll gather together again Sunday morning as our confirmation students will celebrate that milestone, and we'll celebrate Shavuot as a community. So if you have been following along with the counting, Mazel Tov, Yash Koach. It is a spiritual practice that is actually not the easiest thing. All you're supposed to do is to say this blessing and count the day, but you're supposed to do it every single day. And if you forget, then you're actually you're out. It's sort of like musical chairs where then you're out until next year. But some people might still sort of count something or have an intention, but technically speaking, you've lost your opportunity to say the blessing until next year. So if you made it this year, way to go. If you didn't, there's always next year. But we still have a few more days to be mindful. So even if you haven't been counting, we'll have that opportunity to do this spiritual practice tonight, and you can try to take a small moment of mindfulness every single day from now until Saturday night, and at least you'll have that to kind of uplift you. So we will start with the blessing on the bottom of page 152, and then flip to page 156. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom shisha v'arba'im yom, shehem shisha shavuot v'arba'a yamim la'omer. Today is 46 days, which makes 6 weeks and 4 days of the Omer. And every week and every day also has sort of an emanation of God lined up with the 10 Sfirot. And so this week is the last week of the counting, and so we're in the week of Malchut. And Malchut is sort of a exploration of the dimensions of majesty or immanence, like God's immanence in ourselves, in our lives, and in the world. And we're moving into the day of Netzach, which is strength or endurance. So we're at this intersection of Netzach and Malchut. And so one of my friends and colleagues, Rabbi Elliot Tepperman, wrote about this intersection. The work that we do is practicing being brave so that if we are ever really called to be brave, we will be ready. So I think that it's definitely something I teach my children frequently, that we never know when we're going to be called upon to kind of step into that role. What that means is also something different for every person and in every moment, what's called upon for that moment. We can certainly think about and we can see, and I'm sure on our minds, are kind of the most extreme situations of that in our news and in the world around us. But we also know that there's sort of small ways that even if we're not first responders, or even if we never put ourselves in that kind of harm's way, that there's small ways that we can also kind of step into that bravery in our lives. So I hope that's something that we can take note of, celebrate those moments, and also kind of stretch ourselves as we move through our lives. Okay, hey class. We're going to turn to page 150, so turn back, and I'll invite your family and friends to rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shameach l'adon hakol, l'teitenu l'aliotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'gayei haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo samchaltenu k'hem, v'gor aleinu k'cho hamonam, v'anachnu karim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz, b'yom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shmo echad.
You may be seated. You guys can go have a seat as well. We turn now to page 151 for Mourner's Kaddish. And in our community this week, we send our condolences to the family of Carol Baldridge on her passing. Of course, in the world, we also are thinking of all of those who lost their lives recently in Uvalde, Texas. Today, the first two students were laid to rest. I don't know if you saw these images of an artist who volunteered to paint the caskets, these beautiful images. Which was heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. We pray for a world that is more peaceful, where such tragedies could never happen again. And we send our love and our support to the families of all those who lost their lives, and really to the entire community who has been torn apart by this tragedy. If there's others who are saying Kaddish, I invite you to rise at this time, along with all those for whom it might be your custom to rise in support of the mourners, or for those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, and of course those who are observing a yard site. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divra kirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'yizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach Leolam Olamei Omaya Nit Barach V'yish Shabach Pa'ar V'yit Romam V'yit Naseh V'yit Hatar V'yit Aleh Lal Richu Le'ela Minkol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Ta'amiram V'alma V'imru, amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru, amen. Yosef Shalom B'mromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru, amen. May the one who brings peace to heaven bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who dwell on earth. And we say together, amen.
Amen.
At this time, it is my great pleasure to invite Moramat to come on up to the bima. You can feel free to put your sidurim down on the chair or on the table next to you. And our students have had an opportunity to reflect on a little bit of what they have been learning this year, or really since the beginning of their time starting in religious school here. So our Kita Hey, for some of you, you can go into the middle if you'd like. For some of you, your connections with BTBJ began in our early childhood center. I can still see you little tiny people up here on the bima for all of your class shows and Shabbats and all of that. For others, you have joined in the last couple of years. But regardless of when you came, we know that relationships and connections that you have formed are not just based on the quantity of time that were spent in this building and in this community, but really on the quality of that time that you spent together. And I think Mo or Matt can also attest to this, that the weeks that you were here, there was so much excitement that you would come just like bouncing down the hall with you, that you were all just very excited to be together. So I hope you learned something along the way. But we're grateful that we've been able to provide that container and that space for you to be here and to be a class. So I know that we have seen you grow a lot over these years. I think you're all taller than me now, but that doesn't take much. But we hope that you have grown a lot in your Jewish knowledge and in your connection to Judaism and to Jewish community. And so we are going to have a chance to hear a little bit about that growth and that learning. And so I will turn it over to Mo or Matt.
Hi, guys. Does this work?
That should be on.
Okay. So, yeah, like Rabbi Roney said, this class is pretty cohesive. I think they really like each other. They're very optimistic. I've taught 7th grade for 25 years at I don't know how many different synagogues around here, but for some reason I keep coming back to BTBJ. I've said this before, but like The Godfather 3, it just keeps pulling you back. Somebody gets that. So, but they're just really, really nice to teach. You know, it gets a little chaotic, 7th grade. They have their bat mitzvah, but a lot of them kept going, which is not always the case. And I had a lot of fun with them. And in the second semester, I noticed a definite, moving towards more maturing as these guys are reaching adulthood, whether we comprehend that or whether they comprehend it or not. But I think they do, because during a pandemic and during, we talked about and researched the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and tied that into what Jewish life was like in Ukraine and all the famous people now and back then. So I think people like doing that and doing presentations. And so, they could have talked about that, or they could have talked about the 100th anniversary of the first bat mitzvah ever in America, which didn't catch on until, decades later. So I wanted them to really appreciate that and women's rights as Jews and in general. And so some of the topics, that's one topic. And of course, 7th grade at BTBJ does focus on Holocaust, but not exclusively. And given all the tragedies in the world, I didn't want to go too heavy with it, but I wanted them to see different righteous Gentiles and how they saved Jews and other Jewish people who fought back, rather than focus on what exactly went on in the concentration camps. I do advise you to, from this point forward, go to the Holocaust Museum, especially if they can go with a group and with a decent leader, which I did in the Lower Merion community. They arranged that, but maybe these guys can go with some other synagogues from around here that we try to partner with, which would be just fantastic, especially as teens. So we also talked about things that they really enjoyed, this group, growing up here at BTBJ. So some people are going to talk about that. And we did a little bit on Jewish life cycle and what it means to become a bar bat mitzvah and what these guys think they might do in the future. Whether it's studying with their friends and teens together, it's kind of like you choose what you find to be meaning. You want to help do social action, keep doing that. That's amazing. I didn't get that opportunity. That'll really help you grow as adults and help you secure your Jewish values. So now Bailey's not here today, and she's on my first list of talking about the first bat mitzvah in America, which Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan decided, I think my daughter should have a bat mitzvah in 1922. So you want to read Bailey's, or should I? Okay.
Bailey Wilder writes, the first bat mitzvah ever in the United States of America was only 100 years ago. This was very shocking to me because for most of my life, I have been embedded in the deeply Jewish BTBJ community and did not realize everyone got to have as great of a Jewish education as I did. I have been so blessed to be surrounded by this incredibly welcoming and loving community since my 2nd grade year. As I wrote in my Devar Torah, without this day, I would not have gotten to have my bat mitzvah 2.5 weeks ago. And that has always been a goal of mine. I could never imagine not having that chance, and that is why I am so grateful to that wonderful day only 100 years ago.
So in order to teach that, the class watched these Instagram videos that were created by a 12-year-old actor. She might have had her bat mitzvah by now, but she's the same age as these guys and girls. And she pretended it was 100 years ago, and it was really, really cute, and these guys liked it. They're like 2-minute little vignettes of her preparing and how her dad thought she could be a bat mitzvah, and that was really cool. If you ever look on Instagram, 100th bat mitzvah, it's really wonderful to watch. Now, how anti-Semitism, which is still very prominent, I used to work with the Anti-Defamation League, and it's really getting worse, sadly, in the last few years. And so how does anti-Semitism really start? And I taught about an incident in Billings, Montana in 1993 where there was desecration of Jewish synagogues and cemeteries in Billings, Montana, and the community rose up to fight against that, and the whole community put menorahs in their windows on Hanukkah, even if they weren't Jewish. So we watched videos about that. It was called Not in Our Town, and Isla decided to write about anti-Semitism from that perspective. So you're next, and I'm really happy that she remembered that day of learning.
This year at Hebrew School, we learned about many different Jewish people's stories. One that stands out to me was what happened in Billings, Montana in 1993. A gang of racists were harassing Jews, African Americans, and Native Americans in their town. One night, they threw a brick through the bedroom window of a Jewish family's home, right where their little boy slept. The gang knew that this was a Jewish family because they had Hanukkah decorations on their house. The police officer on the scene told the mom that maybe they should take the decorations down until it was safe. The mom's Christian best friend said that was terrible because if she had to tell her son to take down her Christmas decorations until it was safe. Sadly, this showed how anti-Semitism still exists in America. But something amazing happened. The town's newspaper printed almost 10,000 menorahs, and all the non-Jewish families put the menorahs in their windows to show they supported the 60 Jewish families in the town. All the people in Billings, including the African Americans and Native Americans, marched in the cold weather, holding menorahs to show they stood by the Jewish families. Eventually, the gang stopped their attacks on the minorities. This became a movement called Not in Our Town. We watched and discussed a video about this. We learned that you must speak out like the good people in Billings, Montana, especially during these times when racism seems to be growing.
Thank you, very nice. And excellent. Now they have a Chabad center there, lighting menorah candles for the whole community, and they don't have to worry about these racist gang skinheads that were there. Now, and we did lots of lessons on anti-Semitism and how that led to prejudice both in America in the late 1930s, not paralleling Germany, but it could have. It was close. And we watched some videos on that. Now, the next thing, Sophia and Noah and some others are going to talk about some memories from BTBJ, starting with Sophia. Some of your favorite experiences in our community in religious school.
The BTBJ Shabbaton has given us a fun way to express our Jewish traditions. I've gotten close in my class with these moments. My favorite Hebrew school memories have come from running around, doing services together, rocked on Israeli dancing, and other Shabbat activities. Not only was it always fun, but I learned a lot. The Havdalah lights flickering will always burn bright in my memories and will continue to amaze me. When everyone sits in a circle for services, there is a special and different connection that occurs. Also, doing a social action project every year is a fun way to give back and help people in need. So much teamwork goes into activities and planning, which creates togetherness. But the Shabbaton is definitely one of my fondest memories.
Now I'm going to bring up Noah.
One of my favorite moments at BTJ was not like my bar mitzvah, but seeing all my classmates come up to the bima and do theirs. I know how much time they've prepared for this, and it really feels special seeing all my friends grow up and going on to the bima that day. It's so special to see my friends so excited when they show up to the service and after at the party. When you get up to your friends and family, it must feel so special seeing it. The parties after the service are so cool, and it's a moment where you can congratulate all of them.
Now, more pleasant memories will be kind of expanding on what Sophia said, and that will be Holly and Brandon speaking about a similar, your reflections on said topic.
We both wanted to talk about how Shabbaton is one of our favorite BTBJ memories. For those who don't know, Shabbaton is a weekend retreat at a camp about an hour away from here. Kids and their parents would be placed into cabins depending on their child's age and which parent was with them.
We had a lot of fun in the cabins. We'd hang out late, play games, eat candy, and just have a good time. We'd get together in the main room for services, meals, and different activities. Some of the activities that we loved were making s'mores around the campfire, have dollar under the moon, and donating contest, and of course dodgeball.
Not only did we get on a deeper religious level, but we all got to bond with each other through dance, stories, ceremonies, and songs. It was neat to sit in a big circle during the services so we can see each other. That was very different from normal.
When it was time to leave, we felt sad that this amazing retreat was over, but appreciate all the planning that goes into it by BTBJ. As we look back, we realized that we lost our chance to go back to Shabbaton over the last 2 years, but we hope younger kids would still get the chance to experience it in the future.
So yeah, events like that truly stand out as a way to connect kids and their families. I didn't really get to go to the Shabbatonim here, but I had them in high school and elsewhere as a counselor at overnight camps, and it's just very powerful, and helps continue your Jewish identity, remembering those things especially. Now, speaking about going forward from this point, Brenna is going to talk a little bit about that and her ideas for what to do now that she's become a bat mitzvah.
I am continuing my Jewish journey by volunteering in Mara Fine's second grade Hebrew class on Sundays, and I'm looking forward to working with the same class next year through the TAP program. Another reason I love volunteering is because I love getting to know the kids, and the kids are constantly impacting me in many different ways.
Yeah, so many BTBJ students I've taught over the years really do love getting involved working with younger children, either in the camp or through the program Brenna spoke about, and so forth. There's just many ways to be a role model, and that's just critical nowadays to have good role models as teenagers, for teenagers to be. One of the things we did regarding the Holocaust was it's essential to meet a survivor as their numbers are rapidly diminishing, especially some of the real luminaries in the Philadelphia community. In the last 2 years, we've lost a number of people, like Annalise Nussbaum, who was supposed to speak last year or 2 years ago, and there's been a few that we've lost. So we did get to meet Daniel Goldsmith a few weeks ago, and to conclude these comments from the class, Ethan and Davin, and if Anna's not here, Zoe's part of the group too. But I think what you see in the script, if we didn't change it, Zoe, you can read Anna's part because they all collaborated on this. So you guys come up and tell the congregation and your family about what you learned of survivor Daniel Goldsmith.
On a recent Wednesday night, Daniel Goldsmith, a Holocaust survivor, spoke to our class on Zoom to share us his story.
The importance of Daniel's survival story was how he was almost the same age as we are, but had to survive on his own without his parents or little sister. I could not imagine myself having to survive in a time like that.
Daniel's story began in Belgium. He was awoken in the middle of the night by a Nazi raid on the street. Not knowing what was going on, his mother woke up his sister. His father had already been drafted into a labor camp. His mom led Daniel and his sister onto the roof of the house in the dark. Somehow, one of the Nazi soldiers who peeked through the opening in the roof did not see them on the other end of the building, hiding under a blanket.
Right after the raid, Daniel's mom got Daniel into an all-Catholic boys' school with the help of a sympathetic Catholic priest, a righteous Gentile. He was safe for a few months. Unfortunately, there was another raid where the Nazis could identify all the boys on whether they were circumcised. Daniel didn't even know he was one of the 5 Jewish boys that were hiding there.
While being taken away on a cattle car, an older boy named Joseph used a metal bar that he hid up his pant leg to pry away 3 panels of wood from the car and push the younger boys out. They had cuts and sprains, but otherwise okay. Believe it or not, they wandered into a town and another friendly priest saved them. After the war, Daniel got to reunite with his mom and sister, and they went to the United States. Tragically, Daniel's father died in Auschwitz.
This year, we learned some details about how the 6 million Jews and 5 million others were killed in the Holocaust. But even just one story like this, how Daniel, his mom, and his sister survived, meant a lot in making it personal for us. Actually, meeting Daniel is so important for learning and understanding what happened during this tragedy in our history.
Thank you.
So I just encourage the class to look up survivor stories on YouTube. The Shoah Foundation, which is Holocaust Foundation, has small, you can 3-hour listening to somebody, but they have like 5 minutes speaking about specific things that they went through, and they're just so fascinating to give you more of a perspective. And now you see that sometimes the history repeats itself, and it's our goal with our Jewish Midot values to somehow figure out a way we can maybe help to tikkun olam, improve things. Just 10 years ago, I taught a boy in your class, and he's been fighting for gun control in Pennsylvania for the last few years. That's his job, this young man, Max Milkman, and one of my, dear BTBJ 7th grader, and he works for an organization called Ceasefire PA. So, it seems like not much is being done, but on little ways, hopefully, that's the only way, is to take things step by step to improve our world, to make things better for people so we're safer and happier. But 7th grade, thank you so much. That was excellent. Your comments.
Thank you, Mohamed.
Thank you.
And thank you, Kita Hay, for sharing your reflections with us. I know that is only like a tip of the iceberg of things that you have learned both this year and in previous years. But I thank you for sharing some of those memories with us and also some of your teaching. And I hope that you know that there are lots of ways that you can continue to learn at BTBJ beyond this year. And whether it is in our Kesher Teen program or whether it is coming back to some of our adult programs as well. There are many things that are quite appropriate for you as you move forward. And so if you like hearing Holocaust survivors speak, come to our Yom HaShoah program every year. If you like to be able to learn about other important things that are happening in our news, come to some of our programming. Please know that you're always invited, even if it doesn't say specifically for you or for your age, that we hope that you'll continue to make BTBJ your home, and that you'll find ways to continue to both gain some of the learning to enrich your own lives, and that you'll also continue to give of yourselves. So, Cantor Benjamin, one of the ways in which you can continue at BTBJ is by joining this fine young man on our bi-weekly Kesher Teen program. So I think he wants to say a little bit more about that.
So I think everybody in this room I spoke at, will speak at, or had someone speak on my behalf at your bar or bat mitzvah. It kind of fell into 3 categories: movies, sports, and general Judaism. Yeah, did that pretty much cover everybody's topic? Oh, and music, sorry, Davin. That's right. So that kind of sums up a lot of what I like to do in Kesher Teens. The way that we've sort of structured the program is so that up to this point, you've gotten all of the stuff that you should know to be able to have a bar bat mitzvah successfully, to be up there and lead a service, read Torah, and everything. The way I like to do Kesher Teens is to teach and find stuff that we want to learn, we want to find out about, the stuff that's interesting to us as individuals, that has connections to Judaism, and that has meaning to us in 2022 and will continue to have meaning for us for the rest of our lives. And to instill that if you can't find something in Judaism that doesn't interest you or doesn't have some sort of connection to what you are interested in, then you're not trying hard enough, because it really can be something that can continue to give you joy, education, and inspiration for the rest of your lives. And so I really hope that we can continue this Jewish journey together, and that you all can continue to find the things in this tradition that speak to you and that make you individuals, and that get you to ask the questions of our tradition that only each of you can ask, because all of you are unique and different individuals. So
Thank you, Candy Benjamin.
It's been a joy to work with all of you one-on-one, and to get to know you one-on-one, and to see, what makes you tick. And you're all fantastic human beings, and I love you all.
I mean, who would not want to come and hang out with him every other week for the next 3 years at least? So it is really fun to see the kinds of things that they've been able to do, whether it is online, how you think you're doing things, last year or temporarily this year when necessary, or to see what you're able to do in person. It is really kind of, bringing your own questions and your own interests to the conversation. And Cantor Benjamin comes in with a lot of ideas, but is also really open that if there's things that are going on that you want to talk about, that we'll throw everything out and come up with something new, or if something's happening in the world or in the news, then that's what you're talking about this week. So I hope that that's something that some of you will choose to continue on with us into the future. But we also know that there are lots of ways to continue your Jewish journeys from here. So some of that might be with Kesher Teens, and some of that might also be with BBYO. So right on cue.
Wait, Rabbi Ronnie, before you proceed.
Yeah.
I had forgotten to, maybe one will say last week, to include Eli's reflection.
Oh.
I'd like to do that before we conclude the service.
Absolutely. All right.
And this is a little different perspective than Noah, who mentioned the thrill of seeing everybody else become a bar mitzvah, and this is more of Eli's personal perspective.
Excellent.
So you run up there, loud and proud.
Sorry about that, Eli.
Sorry, Eli.
My favorite memory from BTBJ is when I was on the bima for my bar mitzvah. I was kind of nervous at first, but after 1 or 2 prayers, I was much calmer knowing that Cantor Benjamin and Rabbi Greif were there to help me. It made me feel so much better knowing I had their support. Also, being the leader of the service felt very rewarding because I felt proud being a part of the BTBJ community. Another favorite memory I have of BTBJ is the Purim Carnival, because it is very fun and there are lots of games and activities that I can enjoy. I can enjoy special holiday events with my friends, and at BTBJ there are always fun things to do year-round.
Amen. Thank you, Eli. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for flagging me down. Sorry, you weren't, made it, I don't know, program, but we fixed that. Thank you. So, one of the other things that you might choose to do next year, instead of or in addition to Kesher Teens, as you continue your Jewish journey, is by getting involved with BBYO. And so we are very blessed to have the regional Nasiya, correct? Did I get that right? Who is a member of our very own BTBJ. So Dahlia Dunoff, would you mind coming on up and sharing a little bit about BBYO and if these kiddos would like to get involved, what they should do?
I would just love to. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, Mazel Tov to all of you guys. I'm really proud of you, especially you, Fia. I'm sorry that I wasn't here to watch your beginning thing, but you guys have worked really hard, and I love how tight-knit all of you are, and I think that's really cool. Anyway, so Nasiya is another, that's what we call our regional president. In BBO, our region, just for, perspective, it's a little bit of southern New York, and all of Delaware, and like all of eastern Pennsylvania. So in BBO, we have chapters, and then we have regions, and the regions all across the international order. Our chapter, the girls' chapter is Kohavim BBG, and the boys' chapter is Hatmara AZA. They're two of the most thriving regions in our chapters in our region, which is pretty cool. And we have events a few times a month in the chapter, and also just events in the region all throughout the year. Some of our chapter events, we'll have fun meetings, we'll do movie nights and spa nights, and the guys will play a basketball game and go to the Sixers game, and seriously, the opportunities are endless. It's a ton of fun. All of my best friends I've met in my chapter and in my region, and then we come together, we have conventions. I don't know if you've ever heard of a convention, but we all hang out we were at Green Lane for a few weekends ago. We're at a camp, we're at a hotel, all these really cool things, and you're just meeting people from all across the region, getting to do super fun activities. You can then go and lead those activities, and leadership is a little bit of a scary word at first, but it's so fun because you get to just hang out with your friends. And yeah, it's basically, I never thought that I would find Judaism as meaningful as I have because of BBYO. So if you have any questions, luckily you can come talk to me, but we'll be reaching out to all of you. Don't worry. So come join. It's fun. When can you join? You guys can join in the beginning of 8th grade. It is 8th to 12th. So don't worry. Fun events coming soon. Get big kickoffs in the fall. Get excited.
Thank you, Dahlia.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Dahlia? All right. She knows where to find you, and you know where to find her. So what I will say, and just to emphasize that it is a super fun way to get to meet Jewish kids from all over the country, really, and really all over the world, I guess, depending on how deeply you get involved. And so, as wonderful as our BCBJ community is, it can also be really cool to get to know some kids that live in other places, if that's something that you also find exciting. Yeah, Glenn.
Since the kids enjoy Shabbaton so much, I'm going to guess, remembering from my childhood, the Jewish youth group stuff, it's probably like Shabbaton at a hotel.
That's true. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. But if you like Shabbaton so much, you also don't ever really need to leave Shabbaton, because there are also lots of ways to volunteer and continue to be involved here at BTBJ. So like Brenna said, that whether it either instead of or in addition to all of these other things, you don't have to choose just one, you can choose all of them. We are also very excited to have you guys come back to help out in the religious school. So whether you're only available once in a blue moon and you want to just call us up and say, hey, can I come in? Or whether you want to commit every single week, whether it's in person or online, we would love to have your help. And so most of our students will start out volunteering in the beginning, and then as they're moving along, slowly they'll start to get paid. So it can turn into a paying job. And there's a great fellowship that many of our students have also been involved with, that Dahlia was involved with, and that, God willing, Brenna will, next year as well, where you also get some special training for working with students with disabilities, which I always say I think is just great training for working with students in general. And so once you complete that fellowship, then we'll start to pay you to participate with us. So we hope that that's something that you can choose to want to be involved with as well. And even if you can't commit to coming every single week, then you can just volunteer and say, help out with Shabbaton or help out with special programs, because having the younger kids to look up to you is so important to make this fun for them. And unfortunately, we missed a lot of that kind of experience over the last 2 years, where you've been able to, be in that like big, older mentor kind of role for some of our younger students, since we had to keep everyone separate. So you're an amazing group of human beings, and I would hate for them to miss out the opportunity to learn with and from you. So I hope that you'll consider coming back, and when we put out a call for volunteers, even if it's just for Shabbaton or even if it's just for one day of the Purim Carnival, that you'll hear that call and that you can kind of come and you can help out as well, so that you can be that kind of mentor for some of our younger students, because they would be very lucky to have you. Wherever your paths might go and whatever you choose, I just hope that you can make some meaningful choices for each of you, whatever's meaningful to you in that moment, and so that you can continue to enrich your own lives and your own Jewish journeys, and that you might choose to do that somewhere along the way with us, because we would also very much like to see the human beings that you continue to become as you travel along those paths. So I want to share with you some gifts and some blessings. So this week we will be beginning a new book from the Torah. We are finally leaving Vayikra, as fun and exciting as that was for all of you who have been reading from all of those lists of laws and rules. But don't worry, there's more in Bamidbar. But we're moving into this new book. And Bamidbar is often translated as numbers, but it literally means in the wilderness. And here we find the Israelites continuing along their journey to the Promised Land. As Mayani said the other day, she's like, how long is it going to take them to get there? And we were like, 40 years. So it's kind of a long way to get to the Promised Land, because they have a lot of wandering that they do, but from point A to point B. But I think the other thing that's important to remember is that while we might continue to kind of have our eye on the prize of whatever our destination might be, and we know that how lucky we are to have a modern state of Israel, where some of you were recently. So I hope that you got to really appreciate how lucky we are that we do have that modern state where we can journey. We're also reminded that just as important as the destination is also the journey itself. And along the way, the Israelites, they formed an entirely new community. They had lots of ups and downs, which many of you have explored in your Torah portions. They learned to be a free people. They learned what it meant to no longer be slaves. They learned what it meant to be in relationship with God. They learned what it meant to be in relationship with each other. And we know that they weren't perfect, but that they learned how to also take responsibility for their actions, how to make amends if they did something wrong, and also how to create and maintain themselves as a holy community. So Kita Hey, I hope that BTBJ has also helped instill some of these life lessons and values for each of you, so that you can take these on your journey with you, wherever it is that your journey may lead. I pray that we will continue to be able to witness your journey, to have opportunities to share that journey with you, and that you will always find ways to question and challenge one another, just as you have up until this point, to question and challenge us, just as you have up until this point. And I really can't wait to discover the Jewish adults that you will continue to become. So we wish you much luck, much mazel, for the journey ahead from this point. And one of the things that we were reflecting on as we were talking about the importance of this day is that, on the one hand, we've been up here with you at lots of different moments throughout your religious school career, and especially throughout this year. And one by one, as Noah pointed out, we've had an opportunity to celebrate each of you as individuals, and soon we'll get to celebrate the last couple as individuals in the next few weeks, Isla and Zoe. But part of what makes tonight so special is that we get to celebrate you as a class. And that as a class, you are a phenomenal group of young men and women. And I hope that you appreciate each other, and I think you do, as much as we appreciate you. And so from here on out, I am sure that you will continue to remain in each other's lives in lots of different ways. But tonight we sort of mark the end of this cohort, of this class. So from the early days of ECC on through tonight, that's something to celebrate, because you've meant a lot to all of us. And we are so grateful that your families chose to be here for all along that way. And we hope that we'll continue to see more of you in the future. So as you take these next steps, I want to offer you this, this prayer. Actually, you know what? I will first present, no, I'll do it this way. I want to offer you this prayer by Devon Spire, which is a little bit of a new take on the traditional traveler's prayer. She writes, "How do we decide to be who we are meant to be? Are we to unfurl a scroll and walk to the length of our ancestors? Are we to go forth like Abraham to Canaan? Or stay behind like Moses, who arrived just shy of the promised land? No matter our steps, no matter how measured or unsure, let the desert and its mystery wrap us in a greater knowing, that ourselves, like our ancestors, are bound up in the journey, and that with every twist and turn, God and we too, resiliently and revealingly, remain." We hope that no matter where you go, Kitahe, that you will always feel the warmth and the support of the BTBJ community, and that as you grow into Jewish adults, that you will also come to continue to spread that warmth and that support for others. And may we all be blessed by all that you will continue to accomplish in the world. And we just want to say mazel tov to you and to your families on reaching this milestone. And please remember, wherever your journey takes you, that you'll always have a home here at BTBJ. So at this time, I do have some gifts for you. And so there is a gift, and oh, you know what? There is a gift and another certificate of appreciation that we're going to give to each of you. I have them all paired up. So the certificate, the gift is from BTBJ. The certificate is not from us, but it is from each of you. So when we were together last in person a couple weeks ago, I asked you each to reflect on what, well, we know that we asked you to reflect on what makes this day so special, but we also asked you to reflect a little bit on what makes each of you so special to one another. And so some of you wrote this down in the moment, and some of you filled it out at home. But we recognize how important each of you have been to one another. And so we have this certificate of appreciation to you from one another. Can I just see one of them? Where you each got to reflect on what you each admire about one another, what you're grateful for from one another, or what it is that you learned from one another. So we hope that you'll hold on to this along with your gifts as something special to remember each other and to remember this class, and so that you can see the impact that you've all made in each other's lives up until this point. All right, so as we call you up, if you can come on up and accept your gifts.
Noah. Dad.
So the other Davin.
Zoe. Ethan. Sophia, do you want yours or do you just want to read Brandon's?
And we'll get them to the students who aren't here. So we just have two more pieces before we wrap up our ceremony here and adjourn for some refreshments. So the first is our blessing for just being so grateful that we have arrived at this moment, that you have been kept safe, healthy, that you have learned along the way, and that we have been able to reach this moment.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
And to conclude, I want to invite our Hey class to come on back up to the Bima. And we're going to close with one final song, which was written by Debbie Friedman, Alava Shalom. And it is called Kaddish de Rabbanan. And so this is inspired by a prayer that, just in the middle, this is inspired by a prayer that we say at the conclusion of a study of a conclusion of study. Traditionally, it might be the study of Talmud or some kind of like big kind of compendium of learning. But she wrote this blessing with the intention of really seeing and acknowledging kind of the chain of tradition that we all step into when we begin to learn. And it is with much appreciation and gratitude for the generations that came before us, for recognizing that we are now finding ourselves in that chain, and that we are kind of recipients of that knowledge, and that God willing, we'll be able to pass that on to others. And so as you, Kitahe, come to the conclusion of this course of study, it is with much gratitude to Mor Ramat and to Kenner Benjamin and to all of the teachers that have come before you, and we hope that you'll continue to be that kind of teacher and that mentor and that light for others. So we only practiced this once, and it was only with like half the class. So you'll bear with us as we sing together this piece by Debbie Friedman. Do you want to start us off? Or do you want me to start us off?
You start
okay.
us off.
Hopefully I can do it. Okay. Are you ready? You can do it. For our teachers and their students and the students of the students, we ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. And for those who study Torah here and everywhere, may they be blessed with all they need, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. If anyone wants to take a picture, now's your time, Melania.
While they're up there.
taller people towards
grade.
the back.
Come in front of
Come in the
the
front so any parents can take,
Somebody,
thank you very much.
half of you on one stack.
Yeah, stand, go down.
Lila, one more step. There we go. Mush together.
Wait, one at a time. I too high.
then your eyes will be all over the place.
All right, and then we're going big here. All right, here. On the newsletter, on the website. Social, baby.
And Photoshop the others in. Oh.
And thank you to all of you. Mazel tov.
Yay!
Please join us in the other room for refreshments.